Do you want to live in a society with high levels of precarious unemployment, growing levels of socioeconomic inequality and people using food banks, but it's powered by clean, green energy? Or do you want to live in a society which has all of those things powered by fossil fuels? Or perhaps you're somebody like me who wants both. And while certainly the pandemic has given us an indication of why we have to learn some of the lessons now being taught to us, in terms of certainly going beyond carbon as we build back better, we also need to move beyond capitalism and, in my view, beyond growth. The pandemic has cancelled the future, but that's okay. It was a pretty bad one anyway. Why on earth would we want to go back to normal? Normal was ecocidal. Normal was an economic growth system that has come out of bounds with the planetary systems that we depend upon. The last time I looked, the planet wasn't growing. Yet the human economy, whether it's capitalist or other, is a wholly owned subsidiary of the planetary system. So how can a subsystem, the human economy, grow beyond the bounds of the sustainable limits set by the larger system? Indeed, why is our economic imaginaries of how the future can be thoroughly colonized by capitalism? We can only think in terms of things like green growth, smart growth, circular economy growth, always growth. But surely we have to consider there's a threshold beyond which growth is actually no longer good for us or the planet. There's a point beyond which growth, as in organic materials, becomes a form of cancer, cancerous growth. Why is it indeed that we can give serious attention to the ideas of Elon Musk and colonizing Mars? He's seen as a visionary, as an entrepreneur with a plan, where people like me who dare to question capitalism are viewed as utopian, naive, unrealistic, or a new one on me, painfully woke. When did we cede what is possible to the parameters of what we currently have? One would like to think that as we build back better out of this pandemic, we have to build back differently. We don't want to bounce back in some naive sense of resilience. We want to bounce forward. And my own proposition is that we need to use the opportunities now of a crisis being a chance to do things differently, to put in place the infrastructure, not just for a green, low-carbon economy. I'm absolutely convinced that the transition to a low-carbon green economy is now inevitable. But whether it is just or not is not inevitable. And that is a political issue that we have to contend with. Why indeed do we see a lot of discussions around addressing the planetary emergency couched in technological terms? We have serious attention being given to geoengineering solutions like solar radiation management or carbon capture and sequestration. When actually, well, if I could tell you, we have all the technologies we need now, right here, right now, to create a low-carbon economy. It would just require a more equal distribution of wealth, perhaps a consideration of a 3-day working week, perhaps considering the democratization of work and the sphere of production. Not easy, certainly, but these all require non-technological solutions. So we have to ask ourselves once again, why, as we consider post-pandemic futures, do we allow our economic imaginaries and the possibilities for the future to be constrained by a sense that there has to be some form of capitalism? Capitalism, in my own view, is simply biophysically impossible to sustain into the future. One reason for this is that for a normal capitalist economy to remain stable, it needs 3% growth or thereabouts of GDP each year. That's a doubling of the economy every 25 years or so. The reality is the capitalist economy is like a bicycle. It either goes or grows or collapses. We need to move beyond this simple system that's unsustainable. We need to stay within the regenerative capacities of the earth, and that will require building back differently? What about greater focus on collaborative consumption or socialized consumption like libraries, as opposed to people buying individual goods and services? Greater attention to public transportation as opposed to private car automobiles. In my own view, we need to seriously consider the socialization of consumption and the democratization of production. But these are going to be political struggles. They will not come about because there's an app for that. The reality is, as the great Frederick Douglass, freed African-American slave and anti-slavery advocate, put it in 1857, power concedes nothing without a struggle. It never has, and it never will. So if we want to build back better and building back differently, we need to not just signpost where we're going, but to see that our future should be one of posts. Post-carbon, absolutely. Post-growth, because we've now passed the stage where growth is beneficial to our communities. It tells us nothing about inequality, and certainly post-capitalist, because it's simply an oxymoron to think that we can have a growth-based capitalist system, and capitalism is dependent upon annual increases in growth and a sustainable world. So we need to build back differently, but we need to build back better.